Hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, DealStats Market Data Evolved. Our presenters for today are Adam Manson, Mitchell Cameron, and O'Day Murray, who I will introduce in a moment. My name is Jared Waters, and I am the Training Director at BVR. Before we begin, I'd like to remind you your attendance today is eligible for 1.5 CPE credits. In order to receive the credit, you must complete and submit a brief survey on today's webinar at the conclusion of our presentation. A link to the survey is included in your registration email and is also available on the reading page for today's program. The survey will be active for 5 business days and will require you to fill in 3 4-digit CE codes. The codes for today's webinar are 7690, 6142, and 9652. Again, the codes are 7690, 6142, and 9652. I'll read the codes again later during the program. If you have any trouble with the audio streaming, please refresh your screen and that should resolve the problem. If you have questions for our presenters, we'll take them in writing only. To do so, please use the chat function on the left-hand side of your screen. We are very fortunate to have our presenters with us today. Adam Manson is the Director of Valuation Data at BVR. He oversees the various data products offered by BVR, including DealStats, the Stout Restricted Stock Study, and the MERGESTAT Controlled Premium Study. Adam has been with Business Valuation Resources for 14 years. He holds a degree in finance from Seattle Pacific University and an MBA from Portland State University. Mitchell Cameron is the Senior Financial Analyst at BVR. Mitchell works with the BVR's Contributor Network to collect and analyze closed deal information from business intermediaries, as well as sourcing data from public company M&A activity. He holds a bachelor's degree in finance and is pursuing a master's of science in finance from Portland State University. O'Day Murray is a financial analyst at BVR. O'Day works on revising incoming closed deal transactions that are sourced from middle markets, as well as researching the Securities and Exchange Commission and other exchanges for publicly available M&A information. He holds a Bachelor of Science in Finance from Portland State University and is pursuing a Master's of Science in Finance Management from Boston University. With that, I'll turn it over to Adam Manson.
Thanks, Jared. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our DealStats webinar. This is Adam Manson, and I am here with Mitchell Cameron and O'Day Murray. Today we're going to explain what DealStats is, provide you with a live demo, and answer any questions that you have. We're also going to be covering the same content that we did on July 11th, so we just wanted to give you a heads up, in the sense of full disclosure, in case you already saw our prior webinar, this will be the same one, so just to let you know. All right, let's begin. So DealStats is the combination of our Pratt Stats database and our Public Stats database. If you're not familiar with Pratt Stats or Public Stats, Pratt Stats is our database of private company transactions. So all the transactions in that database are of private companies, where the buyer type could be a public company, a private company, or an individual. Our public company database has transactions of public companies, and those are made by other public companies or by private equity groups or management buyouts. So DealStats is a combination of these two data sets, and these two new data sets are combined into a new platform. And together, this new platform has 33,000 plus transactions between private and public company comps and 164 data fields. There's also new functionality that was not previously available in Pratt Stats or Public Stats that really helps with searching as well as analyzing your information. And DealStats went online on July 30th, so just not this Monday, but the prior Monday is when it went online. And some of the benefits and enhancements that came with DealStats when compared to Pratt Stats was the ability to search all fields. If you'd used Pratt Stats or Public Stats in the past, you'll probably remember or you'll know that there was a set of predefined fields that you were able to search on. When DealStats went online, it allows now for you to search on any field that you'd like to search by. So that allows for more unique and more tailored searches. Also, with the Pratt Stats Legacy search page, if you wanted to search by a major industry or sub-industry, it required clicking on multiple SIC codes or multiple NAICS codes, and it was a little bit cumbersome. Now with DealStats, you can do major industry searches or sub-industry searches just with one click. So it's really easier, it's a lot easier now to search by industry. And also with DealStats, the platform works by filtering. And so when you specify criteria as you go through the platform, you'll be getting your results directly on the page. You don't specify criteria, hit search, and go to the results, and then have to go back and change your criteria. You're getting the results immediately. So you know in real time if you need to either expand your results, to capture more transaction data, or if you need to contract your results to maybe kind of narrow and hone down your transaction set more. You also have the ability to view the fields that you want. So there's not just those static columns on the site. You can actually choose the columns of data that you see on the platform for your transaction comparables. And when you go through and you want to do your final export to Excel, you now have the ability to either still, like you did before, export all the data to Excel, so all the fields for all your transaction comparables, or you can export just those fields that you wish to export. Another benefit too, and this is something that we had a lot of requests for, was the ability to save your searches. So in DealStats, when you go in and you specify pieces of search criteria, whatever you end up specifying, if you choose the layout of your data fields, you can save that. So you can save your search, your view, and everything, and you can return to it at a later date. And we're going to demo that here in just a minute. DealStats also has graphs that help you visualize the data, so you can see the data in various types of graphs now. Another benefit too is how we're able to offer updates to the database. So with PraftStats and PublicStats, based on the update process, that took place once per month. With DealStats now, the database is updated in real time. So when we either write up a transaction and review it and approve it, or we receive a transaction from a contributor and approve it, it'll be present in DealStats as soon as that approval process is complete. We've also expanded the summary statistics to include a little bit more granularity. And another thing that's nice too is if you're looking for summary results on an industry with a lot of transactions, you now can see those summary results and statistics for any size search that you're interested in. With PraftStats, the limit was 3,500 transactions. So if you were looking for summary data on the entire manufacturing sector or the services sector, that wasn't possible. But with DealStats, it is. Another nice benefit too is you can generate PDF reports for your entire transaction set. So previously with the legacy PraftStats page, you would have to generate those transaction reports in batches of 25. So if you happen to have 100 transaction comparables and you wanted to either read those transaction reports or save them to PDF, you would have to do so in batches. So that would take 4 different files. Now with DealStats, you could do that with one click, which is really nice. And another nice benefit too is being in new technology, we have the ability to be more responsive to changes and feedback. So we can make continual improvements and enhancements based on feedback we receive from you all. And to talk really quickly about how you access DealStats, you access DealStats under My BVR, and this is just the same process that you would do to access your other BVR products. So if you had access to PraftStats and you'd go to My BVR and you'd click that link to go to the search page under My BVR, you just do the same thing for DealStats. And anybody who had an active subscription to PraftStats or the PraftStats PublicStats combo now has access to DealStats. So you're grandfathered in and you get access just carried over into DealStats automatically. And also members of our contributor network who send in transaction data to BVR, they'll still continue to do so, and their access will be for DealStats when they make those contributions. And another change, so in addition to the annual subscription, we now have a day pass option. So if you want to purchase just a day pass access to DealStats, which gives you 24 hours to go into the platform, do whatever work you want to do, export your transaction comparables, you can do so now. And this replaces the single search option that we previously had for PraftStats and PublicStats. And so PraftStats and PublicStats will continue to remain online until the end of September. So if you want to use DealStats and kind of get used to the platform over the next couple months, you have that ability. You don't have to jump in right now and start using it. So PraftStats and PublicStats will still continue to be online and updated until the end of September. So there'll still be those two databases available if you'd still like to use them. And in terms of support material for DealStats, we have a whole host of options that are available under the product page for DealStats. The first is a series of video tutorials. So these video tutorials are short videos that are comprised of information on how to use the various sections of DealStats. So in a sense, they're kind of much like this live demo that we're going to be doing here in just a minute, but they're very short and concise and kind of give you all the specific functionality information you need for those pieces of DealStats. There's also an FAQ page, there's a companion guide, and there's also a mapping file. And this mapping file maps over the fields that were in PrattStats and Public Stats over to DealStats. And if you were a user of PrattStats and you're used to the Excel export from PrattStats, you'll see that DealStats is very similar. So, I mean, not a lot different there, but those are all available on the product page for DealStats. And also, if you have any questions, feel free and contact us anytime. You can contact customer service, and the address is here. You can also contact data questions, and we'll get back to you. So just really briefly before we jump into our demo, we want to talk about where our data comes from. So about 2/3 of our transactions comes from our contributor network. And our contributor network is our network of business brokers, M&A advisors, and transaction professionals. And they contribute information, generally confidentially, to BDR for inclusion in DealStats. And in exchange, they receive access to the platform. And it's a great system. Most of the data is proprietary. It's not stuff that's available in the public domain. I think it makes, it made PrattStats unique. It makes DealStats unique, and it's just really great. And if you're, in the transaction space and you'd like to get involved, there's a link here. It's bbresources.com/contribute. If you know somebody who would be interested, please send them this link. If you're already involved and you're part of our network, just want to say thank you. We really appreciate all your contributions. And the remaining 1/3 of our transactions comes from research we do at the Securities and Exchange Commission website. That just accounts for a small piece of all of our transaction data. So, all right. Well, now we're going to turn it over to O'Day, who will begin our live demo of DealStats.
Thank you, Adam. All right. Now it's time to go through the demo. Without any further delay, let's jump right into it. Okay. Now the first thing everyone will notice is the new look and design of the database, the DealStats database. And generally, the database is split into two sections. The bottom section of the database is the portion which will contain, the location of all of the list of your comparables, as well as tabs that will assist you in conducting analysis regarding the comparables. And in the top section of the database, this is where we will be inputting the criteria for our filtration, adjusting our display, as well as downloading our information. So the first tab I'd like to walk us through today is the Quick Search tab. And generally speaking, the Quick Search tab is the tab which contains search criteria fields for you to filter by. And these search criteria, the list of search criteria that are shown here in the left section of the view, are some of the most commonly used fields that appraisers tend to filter by. And this includes SIC codes, filtering by SIC codes, filtering by NAICS codes, filtering by sale date, filtering by net sales, and so on. Now I'd like to walk us through and get us familiar with some of the filtration data field types. And I'll start us with code trees. And essentially, everything which I will demonstrate here, I will demonstrate under the SIC code tree, is the same as if you were to use the NAICS code tree as well. So when we want to filter by SIC codes, the database presents us with a SIC code tree, which generally gives us, at first starts us off with the 2-digit general SIC codes, and we can break down each general SIC code to identify or to locate the specific SIC codes which we want our comparables to have. So in this example, I broke down retail trade, and I'm looking for eating and drinking places, which I have located right here. And for me to have the database return to me the transactions that have this code, all I have to do is press on the checkbox right next to the code, and as it is checked, the database has now filtered through the entire database and has returned to me the transactions that have this code as a primary. Now, one thing that some of you might have noticed right here in the bottom section of the view, where right now I have highlighted this number in orange, that number is the total number of transactions which we have so far. As we add additional filtration criteria, you will notice that number change as we walk along through this demo. Just something for you to keep an eye out for, and it's for you to see how quickly your results are returned in, via the new database. Now, what we've done so far, when we selected this code, we have instructed the database to return to us transactions that have this code as a primary. Now, a nice function under the SIC or NAICS code tree is that you can have the database return to you transactions that have this code as a secondary and tertiary code. And for us to do so, all we have to do is scroll up here to the top of the view. On the right side, we have the secondary and tertiary option right here. And all we have to do is click on it to have the database return to us the additional transactions which have that code as a secondary and tertiary code.
Hi, Ode. Sorry, I was going to jump in here really fast. We do have two questions about the SIC and NAICS codes here. The first is there any appreciable difference in the data gathered by SIC versus NAICS? So I think what is being asked is, are there different results if you search by the SIC code versus the NAICS code? Well, so the answer, I guess, it kind of depends. So every transaction in DealStats has at least one SIC code and one NAICS code, but potentially up to 3 if they have other lines of business that they participate in, or they provide other services. So the crosswalk between SIC and NAICS codes isn't always one-to-one. Sometimes one SIC, because SIC codes are older, sometimes they can translate over to potentially multiple NAICS codes, because those are newer codes that are updated more frequently. So it's not always a one-to-one relationship. So you'll get more general results if you use SIC codes. You'll get more specific results if you use NAICS codes. So maybe just something to keep in mind. Let's see. So another question here, so if we type in a NAICS code, does the database include companies with comparable SIC codes? So the answer is yes. We have the appropriate SIC codes and NAICS codes associated with each transaction. So really you can search by either. And here's another question, can you search by both SIC and NAICS? Yes, you can. But just to quickly point out, the searches that are being done here on this quick search tab are an AND search, not an OR search. So really it would be better to conduct 2 different searches, maybe one by SIC code to see your results, and then another exclusively by NAICS codes to see your results. If you search by both SIC and NAICS at the same time, you're only going to get transactions that have both that SIC and both that NAICS assigned to it. So just something to be mindful for. All right, thank you, Ode.
All right, thank you, Adam, for answering those questions. Now, after we've demonstrated the functionalities of the SIC code tree, which you could potentially utilize under the NAICS code field if you were to use the NAICS codes. Now we can walk through currency-based fields to filter by. And with currency-based fields, such as net sales, for example, you're presented with a min and max range, which you can input the criteria that you'd like in relation to this currency field. For this example, I'm going to look for comparables that have net sales between $100,000 and $1 million. And first thing you might have noticed was the graph here at the top has changed. And essentially I didn't introduce the graph, but let me walk us through the benefits of it. The graph is a very nice way of giving you a representation of where your comparables generally lie in relation to this search criteria. In this case, net sales. So it sort of does give you a nice distribution of where the majority of your comparables might lie. In this example, if you were to go and observe the graph, in this one instance of the observation, we can see that there are so far 1,407 transactions that have net sales between $460,000 and $550,000. So just as a quick example, that's how you can, it's a good visual assistive tool for you to, potentially better hone on your comparables or understand, okay, well, where do the majorities of your comparables lie in relation to that field. Now, with that, I'd like us to walk through another type of field, which are date-based fields. In this case, I will demonstrate sale date, very commonly used date-based field. And with date-based fields, what's nice about these fields is that you are presented with predetermined time frames that you can choose from. In this case, we can see you can look for transactions that have a sale date within the last 12 months, for example, or last 24 months. Or you can elect to filter or put in a more customized sale date that you'd like to have the database return to you the comparables. In this example, or in this situation, you have the option to search for comparables that have a sale date either before or after a specific date, between specific time frames, and so on. In this example, I'd like to look for transactions that are anywhere after January 1st, 2015. And as you can see, as soon as I inputted this filter, the number of transactions has been reduced, and just as a reminder, you get your results in real time as soon as you apply the filter, which is a very nice feature of DealStats. Now, the last data-based field or data type field that I'd like to demonstrate to us today are list-based fields. And generally, transaction type is a very commonly used list-based field where we have a list that presents us with the two options, in this case, asset or stock. In this case, I will look for asset sales. All right. And just as I mentioned before, under the Quick Search tab, you are presented with this list of commonly used fields that appraisers utilize to filter out comparables. But also there is another list of other commonly used fields that are not shown to you initially. And you can access that list by pressing on the Add Search field right here in the the left side of the view. All you have to do is press on the button, and it will give you a drop-down of the rest of the commonly used fields, which you can utilize to continue your filtration process. One thing that I'd like to point out is, let's say if you were using a specific field, right now we did not use NAICS, but if we were using NAICS, and let's say we do not want to filter by NAICS anymore, all we have to do is either deselect our selections within the filter, or we can simply delete it completely. And to delete it, all we have to do is press on the trash icon next to the field name, NAICS, in this case, and as soon as you press it, it will be deleted from the filtration and your view. And if you want to reinstate it, it will be found in the list that I've pulled up here just a few seconds ago, if you want to reinstate it. Last thing I'd like to demonstrate under the Quick Search tab is a nice new feature that we've introduced with the DealStats platform, which is the Search All Text Field search engine. And essentially what the search engine allows you to do is, if you were to enter a specific word or a search term or a specific term, the database will return to you transactions that have that term or have that word, all the transactions that have that term or word, and how it returns it to you is it searches, or it sort of identifies that term within all the text fields within each transaction report of each deal, and it will return to you the transactions that have that search term or word. So just as an example, if I were to type in the word pizza, the database has continuously filtered to give me transactions that have the term or the word pizza within the transactions. And just as a clarification, this is an additional layer of filtration. It's not simply giving to you at this point, because we've previously added other filtration or other other filtration criteria. After putting this in, this is an extra additional layer. But if you wanted to go into the database right away and you want to quickly look for all transactions that have a specific term, you'll start off fresh, and then the database will return to you, all the transactions that have that search term if you were to just, do a sort of general search right away.
Okay, I was going to take a couple questions here really fast. So one person asked, is BVR replacing Pratt stats with DealStats? In other words, BVR went with a different vendor. So the answer to that first part is yes, on September 30th, DealStats will fully replace Pratt stats. It's going to have all the same transactions that were in Pratt stats as well as public stats. And Pratt stats and public stats will be phased out. But to answer that second part, a different vendor. So Pratt stats, the data is owned by BVR. It was either researched or contributed to BVR. DealStats will be the same. So there's no third-party vendor, if that's what that question means. And also somebody asked, what happens to the PS Analyzer feature? So all the functionality that was available in the Pratt Stats Analyzer will be available, or is available in DealStats, and that'll be up as part of our demo here in just a few minutes. And somebody else also asked, if you do not select stock or asset sales, would you return both varieties of transactions? So the answer is yes, and that's true for any field. So like when you were using Pratt Stats previously, the default was to be all-inclusive. So if you don't make a selection, it just basically specifies all. So you have to specify a piece of criteria if you really want to focus and hone down on that. So just to answer that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Adam. Now moving on from the Quick Search tab, I'd like to demonstrate or walk us through the Search tab. And generally speaking, the Search tab is a much more robust version of the Quick Search tab, where instead of you being provided with predetermined commonly used fields, you are provided with groups. And these groups essentially contain all the fields relating to the group. So for example, target details group, if you were to click on it, it will give you a drop-down list of all the fields that relate to the target company in details. Same goes for income statement group. You will see a list of all of the fields relating to the income statement, and so on. Now, for this example, if I want to apply a specific filter, let's say I want to look for franchise or comparables that are only franchises. I went to the target details group. I scrolled down and I found the franchise filter, and I will click on it. And as soon as I click on it, it is applied here in the right side of the view. But we still did not apply the filter. It has just been added to the list of filters that we would want to use. Now, if I want to select only transactions that are a franchise, all I have to do is click on the radio button, yes, and the database will return to me all the transactions that are franchises, in addition to everything that we've, in addition with all the other filtration criteria which we've added so far. Now, one thing everyone will notice is that there is already a defaulted search criteria under the Search tab, which is target type, and it is set to private. Now, we've done this essentially because we've realized, we've done this and we've inputted it as a default because we've realized that the majority of the users that will be utilizing DealStats are going to be primarily Pratt Stats users. And just for the time being, as a temporary thing that we've decided to implement, just to alleviate any confusion as to not quickly include all of the transactions all at once, just so everyone gets familiar with the DealStats platform. And this could potentially could be something that we might take away in the future, just as a heads up there. Now, one thing that I'd like to inform everyone is, everything that we've applied here on the Search tab works in AND logic in conjunction with everything that we've previously applied under the Quick Search tab. And everything that's being applied under the Search tab, so for example, these two filtration criteria, right now they are being applied using AND logic under this tab. That is the default of how they function, but you have the option of having these filters or the list of filters that you might utilize if you'd like them to work utilizing if you'd like them to work in conjunction with each other utilizing OR logic, and you can do so by pressing the option here, apply any criteria selected OR, and that will have these two filtration criteria work together utilizing OR logic. OR logic can be useful in certain situations where you're looking for more than one potential answer within a specific search criteria. So for example, if you're looking for a target company country, maybe you're looking for target companies that are in the United States or in Canada or in Mexico and so on. Now, last thing that I'd like to demonstrate under the Search tab is the quick and easy way that you can go ahead and apply filters if you know what you're looking for. You do have the option of going through each group, scrolling down through each group's list and picking the filter that you'd like to apply, or you can utilize this handy tool that we've added here, which is the Search Available Columns search engine. And essentially what it does is that if you know what search criteria you'd like to apply, filtration criteria you'd like to apply, you can simply type it in here and it will return it to you and you can apply it. So just as an example here, I know that I want to apply the franchise filter. I'm going to delete it. And I'm going to go ahead and sort of look for it because I know I want to utilize it. All I have to do is type in the word franchise. As you can see, as soon as I typed in FR, it has provided me with the criteria, and all I have to do is press on it now, and it has been given to us in the view, and I will reapply it as everyone can see right now. So just a quick and easy way of applying your filters. If you know what you're looking for, you can just search them in the Search Available Column search engine, and you can get to work even faster.
Howdy, we're getting a couple questions about the trash can icon.
Okay.
So basically, does the trash can icon clear the field or does it remove the field? Could you maybe just expand on that a little bit?
Sure. Now the trash icon, it clears and removes the field. So it clears anything. So like for example, franchise, if everyone can direct their view to the number of transactions, 109 transactions. If I delete it, it will remove it from my view as well as clear that filtration criteria. So I'm going to delete it right now. And as you can see, we are back to 548 transactions. If I want to reapply it, franchise, it will be applied as so. So this is the trash can icon. It works in multiple fields, and how it works, it clears it from your view and it clears the search criteria. This is something that is consistent throughout every single tab of the database. All right. Now that we've demonstrated the Search tab, I'd like us to walk through the Display tab. Now the Display tab is where you are going to generally adjust your view of looking at your comparables to walk through the lists in a manner that best fits your preference. And under the Display tab, is generally split into three sections: the Columns Group section, the Available Data section, and the Displayed Data section. Everything that's under the Displayed Data section right now is already being viewed in the data grid here at the bottom. So, for example, SIC, NAICS, Target Business Description. If we were to scroll down here, SIC, NAICS, Target Business Description, excuse me. Now, if we want to add other types of fields that we'd like to view as we go through our comparables list, all we have to do is go to the Columns Group section, click on one of the groups, and as you can see, while you click on the group, everything that's inside the group will be shown to you under the Available Data section. So if I click on Income Statement, all of the data fields that belong to the income statement will appear. And let's say I want to add EBIT to my display data view or to my display grid. All I have to do is click on it, drag it, and I can drop it wherever I'd like under the display data column. Now, let's say I want to put it at the very end of my data grid. All I have to do is drag it at the very end here, and I'll drop it. And as soon as I dropped it, it is presented to me right away under here in the display grid. Now, same thing goes to what we've previously demonstrated under the Search tab. You have a nifty tool, which is the Search Available Column search engine here at the top left corner of the view. If you already know what you're looking for, you can just type it in. For example, I'm looking for EBITDA margin. Type that in, and it will appear in the Available Data section. And same goes with the last demonstration. Click, drag it to wherever you'd like to put it. Drop it, and it will be presented to you in the display grid right away. Now, next thing I'd like to demonstrate are the sorting capabilities of the DealStats database. Now, first way of sorting that I'd like to talk to you guys about is the Sort tab. And generally, the Sort tab has the same sort of process that we've recently demonstrated under the Display tab. You are presented with groups. If you click on the groups, it will show you under the sortable data section all the fields that relate within this group. And you can drag and drop it under the Sorting Selection tab so you can apply it for your sort. Now, by default, the database, as you can see here, is sorting your comparables by SIC code in ascending order as a primary sort. And as a secondary sort, it is sorting the comparables by sale date in descending order. And this allows you, or this functionality allows you to do multi-level sorts on whatever search criteria or field that you'd like to sort by to your customizable needs. And if you don't want to have this primary and secondary sort, all you have to do is press the trash icon, as was demonstrated in previous fields. Now, another way that you can go ahead and sort your comparables is by going directly to the data grid. And if you want to sort by a specific field, all you have to do is press on the header of that field that you'd like to sort by. So, for example, sale date. If I want to sort by sale date, all I have to do is click on it. First click will have the data sort in ascending order, and the second click will have the data sort in descending order. Now, while we're here, there is another nice and nifty feature under the data grid which you can utilize, and that is the mini search engines that are associated with text-based fields. In this example, we have target business description. It is a text-based field, and here is its mini search engine. And essentially what this allows you to do is you can simply go directly to the data grid, and you can look for a specific term or a word that is found within target business description. So for example, right now we're at eating and drinking places. We have been filtering for eating and drinking places. And right now, let's say I'm looking for an ice cream shop. All I have to do is type in the word ice in the target business description, and I will be presented with transactions that have this word in the target business description. Just as a quick example there.
Hi, Dave. So we have a couple questions about the columns. So one question, is there a limit to the number of columns displayed? So I think that question is, is there a certain number of columns that you can display here, or is it unlimited?
Yeah.
Is there any limit to that?
So there is no limit for displaying the number columns. You can display as many columns as you'd like, but with certain benefits, or at least with this benefit, there comes something that might not be beneficial to you, which is as much as let's say if you're going to add all of the columns, just as an example, if you're adding all of the columns, that might sort of disrupt your view via the browser, and that's sort of a browser functionality type thing. So just be wary with as much if you want to. Just as a cautionary, informative statement, the more you add, the more your view might get a bit, it might get harder to maneuver via the browser. But if you have a good and healthy amount of columns, you can view them with extreme comfort.
Yeah, so you can add as many columns as you want. Just keep in mind that if you add a whole lot of columns, you're going to have to scroll over using your browser, from left to right to see them all. So just something to be aware of.
Yeah.
And then another question is about the sort order.
Mm-hmm.
Can you, within the sorting section, can you drag and drop to change the order? So I think that's, can you drag and drop within that sorting box to change the order of the columns, I think is the question.
Let me, okay. So let's say
under display.
Under display, the sorting order.
Oh, maybe.
I believe perhaps maybe under.
Maybe under there.
Under the sort. Yes. So if you can. So yes, if you, let's say if you had another column under the sorting selection, and let's say you want to switch it over to have, let's say the one at the bottom to be the primary. Yes, you can drag and drop it. Let me make sure. Let me drag this guy over here just as an example. You can drag this over to be the primary, and then this guy will be the secondary, yes.
Oh, excellent. So that's changing the sort order here on the Sort tab, and then on the Display tab, you can drag and drop the different fields, and that will reorganize them down below in your data grid based on your selections.
Correct. Just here as an example, let's say if I want to move the EBITDA margin over to the place of EBITDA, all I have to do is drag and drop it on top of EBIT, and it has been it changes location right away. All right. So now that we've applied our filters, adjusted our display, let's make sure we save everything that we've done so far. And first thing that we have to go to is for us to apply the save is go here to the top right corner of the database, and there will be a save button right here at the top. And for us to save everything that we've done so far, all we have to do is press on save and press save as. And as soon as we press save as, the database prompts us to give a name to our filtration criteria, as well as assign any notes associated with the criteria. Notes can be handy in situations where you're working on multiple projects at the same time, for example. And assigning notes could be helpful for you to identify the search criteria right away and apply it swiftly, and that gives you a more efficient workflow. So for this example, I'm going to give our search criteria the following name: search demo, and notes, I will give it the same note, search demo. And for me, after you are satisfied with the name and the notes, all you have to do is press on Save Screen, and the database will give you a message here at the top telling you that your criteria has been saved. And with the saving function, we also have applied a reset function. And the reset function is easy to apply. All you have to do is press on the reset button right next to the save button, and then press confirm. And that will return the database to its default, where there were no filtration criteria applied, other than the defaulted target type private, as we've explained here before, as well as the view has been returned to the default initial view. Now, if we want to go back to the filter or the search or the filtration criteria that we previously saved, all we have to do is press on the recent button right next to the save button. And when we press on it, we are presented with the list of all of our previously saved search criteria. As you can see here, for example, this search criteria, I have saved it before, and you are provided with the name that you've given it, the notes that are associated with the search criteria to remind you what is included in the search criteria, as well as when it was created and when it was last updated. So for this example, let's reapply everything that we've done so far, or let's apply the filters that we've previously just saved. And all I have to do is press on the name of our previously saved search criteria and press on Apply. Now everything that we've done so far has been reapplied. The filters have been reapplied. As you can see, the number of transactions are the same number of transactions which we last landed on, as well as the display grid has the same view that we have elected to customize it. And so we have all the fields that we've added. And so when you return a saved criteria, it will not only return to you the filtration which you've applied, but also the display that you have customized. All right. Now, after reapplying our filter, let's walk through the data grid and see what transactions we'd like to include or disclude for our analysis. And just as a couple of things to mention, while you're scrolling through the list of your comparables, there are things that you can do to adjust your view other than the display, how you can maneuver through these comparable lists. Right now, there are 10 transactions being viewed per page. And let's say I want to see 50 transactions per page. All I have to do here is press on the View option, and I will elect to view 50 transactions at a time. And just a couple of things to inform you about right here in the top right section of the data grid. You have the number of transactions, as we've mentioned before. You have the page number that you are currently on, and the total number of pages that you have so far. So right now, this is telling you that you have 3 pages of comparables that show you 50 comparables at a time. And if you want to maneuver through these pages, you can utilize the arrow keys located here in the middle, pressing on the right arrow key just as an example. Also, let's say you have a lot of pages. Let's say you have 10 pages, for example, and you already know that you have a comparable specifically that you'd like to revisit on that 10th page. All you have to do is press the number or type in the number of the page right here in the middle where it says Go To Page. For example, I'm going to want to go to the 3rd page, and I will press on Go, and that will direct me to the 3rd page of my comparables lists. Now, as we scroll through the comparables, perhaps we'd like to look for more detailed information just to make sure that we want to include or exclude the transaction from our analysis. And how we can do so is by going directly to the transaction reports. And the transaction reports are also housed under the data grid. How we can access them is by pressing on the orange icons located here in the left side of the grid. As you see for this one, for example, Generate Transaction Report. Now let's say I want to further analyze this deal, Sandwich Shops franchise. All I have to do is press on this icon, and it will generate to me the transaction report associated with this transaction. And the transaction reports include everything from target company details, transaction details, financial information regarding the target company which was acquired, as well as additional transaction information. This includes anything ranging from non-compete agreements, employment agreements, leasing information, and so on, as well as the last section, which includes the valuation multiples and the financial ratios associated with the target company. Also, one really nice feature that is introduced to you via the transaction report is the sort data section. And essentially, the sort data section informs you of where this deal was sourced from. In this example, it was sourced from a contributor. This is the name of the contributor. This is the company name of the contributor. And let's say you wanted to, with DealStats, there is a nice feature if you'd like to find or if you'd like to learn more about the contributor, which provided this transaction. You can search for this contributor's contact information by pressing on the Contact Broker link located right here. As I press on it, it will direct you to the Find a Business Intermediary search engine that we have here at BVR, and you can locate the broker that was previously mentioned in the transaction report if you'd like to learn more or try to contact that broker yourself. Also, last thing that I'd like to mention is under the source data section, which we have just talked about. In certain situations, as we've previously said, transactions can be reported via intermediaries, as well as can be reported via SEC research or public filings research. And in those types of situations, you will be presented with the filing types, the filing dates, and so on. So that's also a very nice feature that is presented here with the DealStats platform. Now, other than, or let's say rather than going through each individual transaction report to make sure the transactions, these are the transactions that you want or not, let's say you want to look at all the transaction reports all at once. Now, you can do that by pressing the Batch Transaction Report option here at the top left corner of the data grid. And as we press on it, the database will generate to you all of the transaction reports associated with all of the comparables, where you can scroll through the list of reports and make sure you want to include or exclude specific transactions, continuing further with your analysis. One thing that's nice about this feature is that you can also print this to a PDF or save it in a PDF document if you would like to do so. Now, let's say after we've looked at the sandwich shop's franchise transaction, and we've realized we don't want to include this into our analysis, all we have to do is uncheck the checkbox right here, right on top of the orange icon here at the left. And as soon as I unchecked it, it is now excluded from any summary information, any Excel spreadsheet downloads, any batch transaction report downloads. So it will be completely excluded from anything that you will do here on out. And with that being said, I will pass things along to my coworker, Mitchell Cameron, who will walk us through the analysis portion of this demo.
All right, thank you, O'Day. So now that we've gone through and we have taken a look at our transaction comparables that fit our search criteria, we can move on to our analysis tabs. The first analysis tab is the Statistics tab. And you'll notice that the Statistics tab looks very similar to the Pratt Stats Transaction Summary. So the only things that we've really changed are here in the section is we've added percentiles up here in the columns. And then we've added SDE margin and EBITDA margin over here on the side. And then one other really nice feature that we've added to this section is in this top right corner, you see that it says Copy. If you click on this button, you'll notice that it highlights the entire table. And what it's doing is it's copying the table in this format so you can easily paste it into any type of text or spreadsheet software you might be using for your reports. Moving on to the Insights tab. The Insights tab is a visual representation of the data. And so here on this first one, we have interquartile ranges. And you'll notice up here at the top, this blue, this top line of the blue box, it represents the 75th percentile. And then the bottom of this orange box represents the 25th percentile of the data. And then right here in the middle of the two is the median. And we've done this for all 6 of the valuation multiples. The second one is a scatter plot. With the scatter plot, what we're doing is we're plotting both the numerator and the denominator of the ratio. And then we're also calculating a a linear regression. And we've done this, again, for all 6 of the valuation multiples. The third one is a stacked bar chart. And in this graph, what we're doing is we're taking the data from our comparables and we're putting them into 5 different buckets. These buckets were created based off the data from the entire overall database. So essentially what you're doing is you're seeing how your data compares to the overall. And again, we've done this for all 6 of the valuation multiples. And then our last one is the distribution. The distribution graph is creating a bell curve of our data. And then we have here in the middle, we have the mean, and then we have it out 3 standard deviations on both sides. And we haven't done this just for the valuation multiples. We actually ended up doing it for all ratios that we calculate in the database. So we'll move right along to the summary tab. Now the summary tab is going to represent a summary of our transaction comparables. And so you'll see here it says DealStats contained 108 transactions with the following criteria. And then it has the criteria of our that we use to search. And then it provides us with the median, harmonic mean, and mean of our valuation multiples. And then the median and mean of all the other financial ratios. And then similar to the Statistics tab, one great feature is the copy feature. Again, you click on it, and it'll copy everything in this exact format so that it's very easy to paste it into any type of text or spreadsheet software you might be using. The next tab is the Multiples tab. The Multiples tab allows us to apply the valuation multiples from our selected comparables to our subject company. And you'll notice that we have different portions of information that we can incorporate our subject company here. And then we have the valuation multiples that are created based off those, the counts, and then the coefficient of their variation. So I'll go ahead and put in some hypothetical subject company information. All right, and once I've done that, I'll go ahead and pick a statistical measure I'd like to use for those valuation multiples. I'll just go ahead and use the median. And then in this first one, what we're doing is we're applying weights to them. So I'll apply a weight of 2 to the revenue multiple, apply a weight of 1 to the gross profit multiple, but to the SDE multiple, I'll apply a weight of 3. So what is happening down here is that it's creating a high value and a low value with a given range, and then it's providing us with a weighted average. And then down here, it's the same exact thing, except the only difference is now we're using percentages instead of weights. All right, so then we'll head over to the Equity tab. The Equity tab, what it's doing is it allows us to create a equity value. And you'll notice that there's 2 different templates that we can use depending on whether or not we're using asset sales or stock sales. And you'll notice here at this first top line, it's the value using the weighted average, and this was derived from our Multiples tab that we just took a look at. So it allows us to incorporate our subject company's information into the template. It allows us to incorporate a less than 100% transaction where we can value just a portion of the business. Allows us to apply a discount for lack of control, and then a lack of marketability discount as well. And then, let's see, and then you'll go ahead and calculate a final value. And then, so one last thing that I want to show you real quick is the Download tab. You'll notice with the Download tab, we have 3 export options now. The first one is the only displayed fields. What this means is it's only going to download the data shown here in the data grid. So all these columns are the only ones that will be downloaded. The second option is all available fields. So the all available fields will download all the raw data associated with all our comparables from our search results. And then the last one is just the analysis tabs. And what the analysis tabs will do, it will download the statistics through equity tabs, and it will put it into an Excel workbook for you. And then, so just as an example, we'll just take a look real quick at the only displayed fields. So it downloads, we open it up, and you'll notice that the only fields that downloaded were the ones shown in the data grid. So that concludes our DealStats demo. I'm going to turn it back over to Adam Manson so he can finish up the rest of our presentation.
All right, well, thank you very much, Mitchell. So really quickly, we just wanted to talk about some of the future projects that we're currently working on. The first is we're going back through our historical transactions to capture historical revenue figures for the sold businesses, both from Pratt Stats and Public Stats that are now in DealStats. And our goal with this is to provide some historical growth rates for those transactions. So we've currently done that project, and we will be working on getting that data into DealStats, so modifying the database to accept those new values, and also modifying the transaction reports to provide those values. We went back and we collected historical EBITDA and SDE figures were available for our historic transactions, so that we could also provide some historic margins for our data. And this is also complete, and we're also going to be working on getting this data into DealStats here in the near future. And when a member of our contributor network submits transaction data to us now, we're asking for the revenue forecast that the buyer and the seller relied upon when closing the transaction. And we're going to provide some future growth estimates with this data. And then two other projects that we're working on. We've documented a series of transactions where less than 100% of companies have been acquired. This hasn't gone into DealStats yet, but we have it internally, and we're going to continue to collect that data and also research it. At some point, we'll make it available. And also, if you use Pratt Stats and Public Stats, you know that we haven't been including the value of earnouts in our selling price, but we do capture that information in the notes field or the deal terms field. And what we're going to be doing now is we're going to be placing the full amount of the earnout and the fair value of the earnout into unique fields. Have that option, and it'll be in a discrete field. So if you choose, you can go ahead and add that. Here's just a couple of testimonials that we have from our customers. And then, we're going to go and try and answer. We have a lot of questions. I know we probably won't be able to get to all of these questions, so we want to provide you with our contact information. You can give us a call. Here's our phone number. You can email us at data questions. And this will, that email address is a distribution list. It goes to our entire department. So whoever's available will be able to get back to you as soon as possible. So let's go through some of the questions that we have outstanding. One here is, can a user select Boolean operators or are they assumed in the software? Did you want to cover that? So I was going to say, so for the Boolean operators, you can select or, and that's going to be specifically under the Search tab. If you're under the Quick Search tab, which is that first tab that you're searching on, which has kind of that pre-selected set of fields for you, everything you specify under there will be and. If you're actually using the Search tab, which is one tab over from the Quick Search tab, you have the option of specifying and or. So if you wanted to search by transactions that occurred in the United States, or transactions that occurred in Canada, or transactions that occurred in Mexico, you have that ability. But that's going to be under the Search tab. And the Search tab gives you kind of like a more robust set of search parameters and more detailed searching, whereas using that Quick Search tab, that first one, it's faster and it's more comparable to how our users used to search in Pratt Stats.
All right, so we also had a question. Someone was asking on DealStats how you could search for public company transactions. Was the question geared toward public companies buying private companies or public companies being acquired?
I think it looks like it's acquired public companies. So now that we're including transactions of public companies in addition to private companies.
Okay.
How do you search for those public companies?
Gotcha. I just wanted to make sure that I had it understood correctly. So target type is by default set to private because we want DealStats to mimic Pratt stats as closely as possible right now while users are still getting familiar. So it is a default setting, but if you would like to get rid of it, all you have to do is click the trash can icon, and now what will happen is it will also include public companies that were acquired in your search results. Now it's not going to, the number didn't change here because apparently none of them fit our criteria, but if you're running a search and you would like to do that, all you have to do is delete that default.
Okay, that's great. And you can also search specifically by public targets if you choose. In that drop-down Mitchell was just demoing, you would just change that private to public. Deleting it just basically goes back to everything, and you're searching for all private and public companies. We have several questions about the cost of DealStats. So Pratt stats, the price for Pratt stats changed at the start of the summer, July 1st, to $9.95. When DealStats went online at the end of July, there was no price difference. The price for DealStats is $9.95 for a one-year subscription. So it's the same as the price increase that Pratt stats received prior, to this. There's also a question about the cost for the one-day search. So a day pass is available for $349, and we call it a day pass because you get full access to DealStats for a full day. And truth be told, it's actually for more than a day. If you were to buy a day pass, you'll have access to DealStats for the day you buy that pass, as well as the next day up until midnight. So you really can almost get 2 full days out of it if you purchase early in the day. So that's also available as well, and that's $349. We have a question here. Will an API be available in order to integrate DealStats into our models? It's a great question. Currently there is no API, but we're working on one. We hope that we can release it soon. So the answer to that question is no, not right now, but there will be one. We have another question here. With Pratt stats, I could print all data on a company. How do I do that here? I think that question is asking about transaction reports, and you can do that. So next to each transaction report, there's going to be an orange paper icon, and what that does is it brings up the transaction report for that specific company. You can print it, you can save it as a PDF, and that's your takeaway for all the data for that company. If you go back, can you go back really fast, Mitchell?
Yep.
So back on DealStats, if you click that orange icon at the top of the column there, so that's the batch transaction report print. And what that's going to do is it's going to pull up all the transaction reports for all your comparable companies. So that's how you get access to all of that transaction data for all your comparables. And again, you can print this, you can save it as a PDF, and you have that option as a takeaway there. We have another question here. If you unclick the checkbox, does that remove the transaction from your search? Can you get it back once removed? Okay, that's a great question. So unchecking that box next to each transaction actually removes that transaction from all of your summary calculations and all of your statistics. So unchecking that box will remove that from any sort of analysis that's to the right of that data tab there. It also will remove it from your Excel export. So if you download the data, that unchecked transaction will not appear. And what we've done is we haven't made it disappear in case you want to re-add certain transactions and view your analysis with those transactions included. And to do so, all you do is just recheck that box, and it will be included again.
Adam, one of the questions that we had is in this tab here where there's the discount for lack of marketability and control premium information, is that something that you get within DealStats?
It's a really good question, and the answer is no. So it's not supplying you with any information. This is just a template for you to enter information into. If you were to use the Pratt Stats Analyzer in the past, it's just the same exact template that was offered there. you would have to go through and use another tool, like we offer the Stout Restricted Stock Study, a restricted stock study to determine a discount for lack of marketability. We also have the Valuation Advisor's pre-IPO study. So 2 different databases and 2 different data sets you could use to come up with your DLOM. If you subscribe to either of those products, you can use that as a basis for your DLOM and enter it here. If you're looking for a discount for lack of control, we have the MergerStat BVR Control Premium Study, and that's another great data source. So while that data is not included within DealStats, we have those other platforms where you can get that information and then use it within DealStats. And that's kind of our goal here, is just to kind of give you a basic template where you can enter your values, and then if you want to export the results to Excel, you have that option available to you.
So another question came in regarding the contributor network, specifically about if there was any geographic concentration, and also maybe speaking to how much any changes or growth in the contributor network over the last few years?
Well, so the contributor network is really, it's based throughout the U.S. We also have contributors that are in Canada and also countries outside of North America. I mean, we have a lot of concentration in transactions from Florida, and that's because the business brokers of Florida, they have it's kind of a lot there, but they collect and reposit all their data and make it publicly available. And really, they're the only state that's capturing all those brokered transactions and making them publicly available. So as a result, the reporting is just really good there. So that's why we end up seeing a lot of those transactions in that specific location. But other than that, we're working with other state associations, specifically, like say California Association of Business Brokers, and also some of the franchises to contribute transaction data to DealStats. And we're continuing to work on our efforts to expand our data collection. So our goal is to continue to grow the contributor network and also grow the number of transactions we receive from the contributor network. Let's see. Okay, so question here, how are you going to determine the fair value of the earnout? So we do not determine the fair value of the earnout. We just report the data as it was provided. So generally speaking, the earnouts mostly apply to transactions that we receive and document from the Securities and Exchange Commission's website. And the acquiring company in those transactions reports the fair value of the earnout in addition to the total amount earnable. And the fair value, it's reported based on, the probability of earning that earnout, as well as the discounted value back to the date of the transaction. So we don't make any of those determinations. We're just going to be providing those values as they were reported. Okay, so this says, will you be capturing control premiums for targets involving public company targets? We're not going to start capturing control premiums. We're just going to continue to provide transaction data based on those transactions. If there's any interest in control premiums for public company transactions or controlling interests in public company transactions, I would suggest taking a look at the MergerStat BVR Control Premium Study. It's a really great resource. And yeah, that's available to you, but no, we don't plan on including that information in here.
Yeah, so we had a very nice question here come in just recently, and that question was where to find the FAQ page for DealStats. And for us to locate the FAQ page, all we have to do is go on Deal and Market Data right here at the top of the website, the BVR website, and click on DealStats. And when you click on DealStats, you will be directed to the home page of the product. And right here at the bottom left section of the view, you will have access, or you can see access to all of the resources available as well. You have the companion guide right here under downloads, for example. You have the video tutorials, as well as you have the FAQ page right here. And you click on FAQs, and you will be redirected to the FAQ page.
Okay, and there's a couple of these questions coming in, so I just want to tackle them. I know that we're bumping up to the end of our time here. We had a few people ask if they can save templates, so if they organize their fields in DealStats and they save that layout, can they share that with coworkers? So currently your saved views, they're user specific, but there is a way to share them if we have a a system where we create a portal for your company where you can share that information. So that's something that, contact us. We can do that. We can set you up. But as an individual user, it's not possible. We have a question about the Pratt Stats private deal updates. Will those be going away? They won't. We'll still continue to publish those, and those will be under the My BVR section. So if you click on your account, they're available under My BVR. Let's see. And yeah, so I guess we'll respond to all the questions that we received that we didn't get a chance to get to. Sorry, we're at the end of our time limit, but we'll get back to everybody and answer all the questions that we still have outstanding. So for now, I'll turn it back over to Jared so he can wrap us up.
Well, thank you, Adam. And on behalf of BVR, I want to thank you, Mitchell, and O'Day for an excellent presentation, and I want to thank all our listeners for attending.